7 demonic habits that will destroy any dark chosen one. There's a silence that descends right before the fall of a dark chosen one. It's not loud, not dramatic. It's quiet, eerily so. It looks like confidence on the outside, but inside it's a slow corrosion of essence. And most don't even realize it's happening until it's too late. If you're a dark chosen one, someone who walks the edge of shadow and spirit, someone with raw spiritual power, not bound by conventional morality, but someone awakened not through light but through pain, rebellion, or raw spiritual contact with the deeper forces of existence, then this message is not just for you. It's your lifeline. Because the truth is, many who are called to the path of the dark chosen never make it, not because they lack vision, not because they lack power, but because they carry within them 7 demonic habits that slowly, insidiously, devour their potential from the inside out. You may think you're rising, but if these energies are active in your life, you're not rising, you're inflating. And what inflates without grounding always bursts.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
The first demonic habit is spiritual arrogance. And this is perhaps the most seductive of all. Because as a dark chosen one, you've likely been through extraordinary awakenings, but you've felt ancient codes activate in your DNA. You've had dreams that felt like prophecies, but you've known things you couldn't have possibly learned through traditional means. You've seen through illusions most people are still trapped in. And because of that, it's dangerously easy to start believing that you're above others, that your path is superior, that you've transcended the need for humility, for learning, for questioning yourself. But the moment you stop being a student of the mystery, you become a prisoner of your own echo chamber. Arrogance is not confidence. Arrogance is fear dressed in power. It's the ego's final disguise, I already know. But the highest beings I've ever met, the true masters, are always the most humble. They don't flaunt their power. They bow to it because they know it's not theirs. It's borrowed, it's sacred, it's dangerous. And the moment you believe you've mastered it, it begins mastering you. The second habit is energetic gluttony. This is the addiction to power itself, the constant need for more energy, more influence, more manifestation, more expansion. You're always chasing the next upgrade, the next spiritual high, the next download. You think if you can just acquire enough energy, you'll be safe. You'll be untouchable. But power without integration is poison. Every energetic upgrade you chase but don't embody becomes a distortion in your field. You might feel stronger, but you're actually becoming more unstable. Look around at those who've burned out, those who've lost themselves in the pursuit of power. They didn't fall because they lacked energy. They fell because they didn't digest the energy they were given. A dark chosen one must learn the art of energetic fasting, stillness, silence, space. Not everything you can touch is meant to be taken. Not every frequency you feel is meant to be absorbed. You are not here to hoard power. You are here to become it responsibly, gradually, reverently. The third habit is emotional possession. This one is subtle, but it's lethal. It's when your emotions start to drive your identity instead of inform your awareness. You get angry, and now you are anger. You feel betrayed, and now you become vengeance. You feel fear, and now you embody paranoia. As a dark chosen one, your emotions are more potent than most. They carry more archetypal weight. When you grieve, it's not just personal, it's ancestral. When you rage, it's not just situational, it's cosmic. But that's exactly why you must distill your emotions, not become them. You must hold them like sacred fires, never letting them burn out, but never letting them consume the temple. When you are emotionally possessed, you become vulnerable to manipulation not from others, but from your own unconscious. You start making choices from wounded instinct instead of strategic intuition. And that's the beginning of your unraveling. The fourth demonic habit is ritual without devotion. This is when your spiritual practices become performance. You light the candle, chant the words, take the herbs, wear the cloak, but there's no fire in your heart. You're going through the motions. You've turned sacred rituals into aesthetic habits. And here's the truth. The spirits don't care how cool your altar looks. They don't care how many books you've read or how complex your spell work is. They care about resonance. They care about realness. But they listen when your voice shakes with sincerity, not when it's polished with pride. Devotion is not about religion. It's about relationship with the divine, with your path, with your own soul. If your rituals are empty, your results will be too. And the spirits will stop answering. Not because they're punishing you, but because they can't find you. You've become a ghost in your own temple. Let me ask you something that very few people are brave enough to consider. What part of your spiritual practice has become a performance for your ego instead of a prayer from your soul? Be honest. The answer to that could be the turning point in your entire evolution. Because if your path is performative, the shadow will eventually expose it. And when it does, the fall will not be gentle. The fifth demonic habit is neglect of the body. This is a massive blind spot for many dark chosen ones. But you think because your power is spiritual, your body is secondary. You ignore your health, your sleep, your movement. You eat whatever dulls the pain. You treat your body like a shell instead of a sacred instrument. But let me remind you, your body is the vessel of your magic. It is the altar upon which all your spiritual work rests. If the vessel is weak, cracked, or chaotic, your energy will leak, distort, and eventually collapse. The most powerful dark chosen ones I've met are grounded in their physicality. They train, they rest, they eat with intention. They know that their body is not a prison, it's a portal. And every layer of spiritual power they unlock is only possible because their body can hold it. Up to this point, we've only touched 5 of the 7 demonic habits. And already I know some of you are feeling seen, maybe even called out. But this isn't condemnation, it's invitation. Because to be a dark chosen one is not to avoid darkness. It's to master it, to befriend it, to recognize it as a teacher. But if you don't catch these habits early, they don't just slow you down. They consume you. They bring you to a place where your own power becomes the blade you fall upon. And yet, there's more. The final 2, how isolation and identity collapse, are the hidden killers of the dark path. There's a moment in the life of every dark chosen one when the world begins to feel distant. Not because it has pushed you away, but because your path has pulled you so deeply inward that nothing external seems to hold weight anymore. You start noticing the gap between you and others widening. Normal conversations feel shallow. Old friendships fade without explanation. You're no longer interested in the mundane, and the mundane is no longer interested in you. At first, This seems like a natural part of the awakening, the cocoon phase, a necessary solitude. But left unchecked, this evolution turns into the sixth demonic habit that destroys dark chosen one's isolation without anchoring. You might think you're just protecting your energy, but what you're really doing is starving your soul. Because we are interdimensional beings, yes, but also relational ones. And when a dark chosen one cuts themselves off from meaningful connection, they lose the mirrors that keep their essence intact. You stop hearing hard truths. You stop receiving feedback. You stop being held accountable. And slowly, the echo chamber grows louder. You become convinced that your inner voice is the only true voice. But perception without reflection becomes delusion. And delusion, when mixed with spiritual power, is a recipe for self-destruction. I've seen this habit bury some of the most gifted people I've ever known. They started out grounded, real, potent. But over time, they cut ties. They stopped listening. They dissolved their human connections in the name of ascension. And at first, they felt more clear, more sovereign. But months later, their energy turned brittle. Their insights became erratic. Their wisdom turned into conspiracy. They started seeing enemies everywhere, and eventually they became their own. Because when you remove every anchor point, your shadow doesn't disappear, it takes over. The mind, ungrounded, becomes a haunted house. And the soul, unreflected, becomes a maze. And your power, the very thing you cultivated, becomes a burden that no one can help you carry. So here's the truth. A dark chosen one must walk alone, but not always. You need spiritual solitude, yes, but you also need mirrored connection. You need people who can remind you who you are when your energy fractures. People who can say, "You're slipping," when your ego starts wearing your crown. You need chosen community, not just anyone, but those who see your soul through your shadow. But those who can witness you in your power and in your pain without flinching. And that kind of connection is rare, but it's worth everything. Because without it, you will drift. And the drift doesn't feel like falling, it feels like floating. Until suddenly you realize you're no longer touching reality. And that brings us to the seventh and final demonic habit: identity collapse. This one is vicious. It sneaks in after you've done the work, but after you've shed the old stories, after you've died to your past. You've burned the former self. You've walked through the void. You've emerged, but you don't know who you are anymore. You're formless, undefined. You've dissolved the ego but haven't yet stabilized your essence. And this is the most dangerous doorway of all, because in that identity vacuum, anything can enter, including energies that mimic your higher self, but are really just fragments of your wounded unconscious, including archetypes that look like power but are rooted in manipulation, including beliefs that seem enlightened but are rooted in bypassing. Here's what most don't understand: ego death is not the end. It's a bridge. And if you don't build a new identity on the other side, one rooted in truth, integrity, presence, and purpose, you will either collapse or get hijacked by false light. That's how many dark chosen ones become warped, not because they chose evil, but because they didn't choose anything after letting go of the old. They left the space blank, and blank space does not remain empty. It gets filled by whatever is nearby. And sometimes what's nearby is a frequency that knows exactly how to pretend it's divine. Reclaiming identity after awakening is not about going back to who you were. It's about embodying who you've become. It's about crafting a new narrative not based on trauma, but on truth. Not on role-playing, but on resonance. You must stand for something, not as a mask, but as a mirror of your deepest knowing. Without this, your energy remains unanchored. Your power becomes erratic. Your vision fades into abstraction. You might still have insight, but you won't have impact, because impact requires embodiment. And embodiment requires identity, not the false one you outgrew, but the sovereign self you were born to remember. So I ask you this, with the deepest reverence, what part of your identity have you destroyed in the name of growth that might actually need to be reborn, not erased? Because the truth is, you're not here to dissolve into nothingness. You're here to become something sacred, something terrifying, something real. The Mirror of Ruin, how to reverse the 7 habits before they consume you entirely. There's a point, often unspoken, where a dark chosen one begins to suspect something is deeply wrong. Not wrong in the world, but wrong within. It's subtle at first. The rituals feel hollow. The visions become less clear. The power, once electric and wild, grows heavy, even burdensome. You begin to sense that something sacred has been lost along the way. And that's when the mirror appears, not a literal one, but the mirror of ruin. It shows you everything, the cracks in your foundation, the masks you wear even in solitude, the places where your light has been extinguished by your own hand. And if you have the courage to look into this mirror without flinching, but you will discover the way back, the way to reverse every one of the 7 demonic habits before they destroy you completely. The first reversal begins with humility, not performative modesty, but a deep, visceral surrender. You must admit that you don't know everything, but that your power has limitations, that you, too, are a student not of books or teachers, but of life itself. The cure for spiritual arrogance is reverence. Speak less, listen more, bow to the mystery. When you speak to the unseen, do it with trembling, not entitlement. Let every spiritual experience be a question, not a conclusion. But what is this teaching me? Instead of I already know, true power is silent. It does not need to announce itself. It radiates and others feel it without you needing to prove a thing. That's the path back to true strength, not the kind that dominates, but the kind that blesses. Next is integration. You don't need more energy. You need to digest what you've already received. Stop chasing new frequencies. Sit with what is already in your field. Let it teach you. Let it unfold. Energetic gluttony is a symptom of disconnection from the present. You think you need more because you haven't fully become what you've already called in. Light a single candle. Breathe. Ask your body, what part of me hasn't caught up with my spirit yet? That question alone can reverse years of energetic chaos. Integration isn't sexy. It's not flashy. But it's real, and it's the only way to build a foundation that lasts. To reverse emotional possession, you must practice sacred witnessing. This means learning to observe your emotions without becoming them. When rage rises, don't suppress it, witness it. Speak to it. Ask, what are you here to reveal? And then wait. When grief floods your chest, let it. But don't drown. Watch it like you would watch a storm rolling in over the ocean, powerful, yes, but temporary. The moment you stop resisting your emotions and start honoring them, their grip loosens. You are not your feelings. You are the space they move through. And that space is vast, infinite, untouchable. Spiritual without devotion is reversed through intimacy with the divine. And intimacy requires presence, not performance. Take your rituals back to their bones. Strip them of aesthetic. Sit in the dark. Light one candle. Speak from your heart. Cry if you need to. Be awkward. Be messy. Be real. The spirits don't care about perfection. They care about truth. The moment your rituals become acts of love instead of acts of pride, you'll feel the current return. The connection. The electricity. It was never gone, it was just waiting for you to come back. The body. The body. You must reclaim it. Not as a tool, but as a temple. Feed it like you're feeding your future, but move it like you're dancing with destiny. Rest it like you're preparing to channel heaven. Your body is not a limitation, it's your translator. It's the bridge between spirit and form. If you neglect it, your power will scatter. If you honor it, your power will land. Start simple. Eat something alive. Stretch. Breathe deeper. Touch your own skin like it matters. Because it does. The body is the first altar. Treat it as such. To reverse isolation, you must seek out mirrored connection. Not just anyone, but those who can hold you in your totality. Those who aren't afraid of your darkness, but also won't let you hide in it. Find your soul family. One person is enough to begin. And if you can't find them yet, prepare for them. Be the kind of person you wish would walk into your life. Speak your truth, even if your voice shakes. Open your heart, even if it's been broken. Because connection is not a luxury, it's a lifeline, especially for one who walks the edge. And finally, the most powerful reversal of all sovereign embodiment. You must choose who you are becoming, not drift into it. Not wait for it, not let the universe decide. You decide. You sculpt your identity like a sacred statue. You name yourself with intention. You don't cling to old labels, but you also don't erase yourself into nothingness. You say, "This is who I am now," and you live it every day, every breath. That's how you reclaim your essence after ego death, not by floating, but by rooting, by building, by becoming embodied truth in action. So, here's the question I want you to ask yourself tonight, and not just ask, but feel with your whole being. What would my life look like if I lived every moment as if my power was sacred, not because it's rare, but because it's real? Because it is. You are not broken. You are not lost. You are not too far gone. You are simply at the crossroads. And now you know which way leads home. The last gate, how to transcend the shadow and rise as a master of your own power. This is the final threshold. The place where most dark chosen ones hesitate, not because they're unworthy, but because they don't realize they're already standing in the doorway. They've survived the descent. They've seen the ruins. They've met their demons, not as enemies, but as mirrors. And now the only thing left is to step through. But this step isn't about more rituals, more knowledge, more unlocking. It's not about becoming something new. It's about remembering who you've always been before the world told you to be afraid of your own fire. Transcending the shadow doesn't mean eliminating it. It means redefining your relationship with it. You're not here to wage war against your darkness. You're here to wield it, to master it like the ancient mystics, warriors, and alchemists who knew that power without shadow is incomplete and shadow without power is chaos. You don't transcend by escaping. You transcend by integrating. By becoming so whole that no part of you is left behind. The final gate opens when you realize something profound. Your shadow is not here to sabotage you, but it's the guardian of your sacred flame. It's the force that tests your readiness. It shows up in every fear, every trigger, every self-doubt, not to block you but to refine you. Every time you choose presence over reaction, responsibility over projection, clarity over confusion, you reclaim another piece of your power from that shadow. And when you've done it enough, something clicks. You stop identifying with the pain. You stop looping in the same lessons. You stop needing to prove anything. You become the path. You are the ritual. You are the temple. But let's be clear, mastery is not perfection. It's ownership. It's the ability to navigate both chaos and clarity without losing your center. It's knowing how to fall without forgetting how to rise. It's looking your shadow in the face and saying, I see you. I know you. And I choose to walk with you, not beneath you. That is when the shadow becomes your ally. That is when your inner world stops being a battlefield and becomes a kingdom. And what happens next is beyond anything you've imagined. Because when you transcend the shadow, life no longer feels like a struggle to survive or prove. You become a vessel for something higher, something ancient, something utterly unshakable. Your presence shifts rooms. Your words carry weight. Your silence heals. You stop trying to influence and start resonating. You don't need attention, you command it, effortlessly, because your energy is clean. Not sanitized, not whitewashed, but clear, anchored, real. And that's rare in this world. That's why people will be drawn to you. That's why your presence becomes medicine. But with that comes responsibility. To walk this path is to be seen not just for your gifts, but for your integrity. People will look to you. They will project onto you. They will test you, not because they hate you, but because they feel something ancient in you and they want to know if it's real. And the only way to show them it's real is to live it consistently, quietly, relentlessly, not with ego, but with devotion. So, I leave you with one final question, and this is the one that changes everything. If you stopped hiding any part of your truth, what kind of life would you create? Not a fantasy, not a wish, a life. A grounded, embodied, sovereign existence where every step you take echoes with purpose. You've already walked through fire. You've already faced the abyss. You've already unlearned everything that wasn't you. Now become everything that is. This is no longer about surviving the path. This is about becoming the path. And you were never ordinary. You were never meant to follow. You were born to lead the storm. Welcome to your throne.